Welcome everyone to What Really Happened to Humpty from the Files of a Hard-Boiled Detective by Joe Dumpty, as told to Jeannie Franz Ransom, illustrated by Stefan Axelson. So we're going to read this book, part 1 today, part 2 on Monday, and then we will proceed to move forward with Zapato Power and finally Wagon Wheel. It was a close vote all the way around. Thanks to everyone for voting. And I hope you enjoy it. Have a great weekend. Oh, pardon me. Here we have a little map. The wall. Three Bears' house. Chicken Little's house. Three Pigs' house, Jack and Jill Daycare Center. This is Mother Goose Land. Downtown Gooseland, Old Woman Who Lives in a Shoe. And finally, The Farmer in the Dell's House. What Really Happened to Humpty from the Files of a Hard-Boiled Detective by Joe Dumpty, as told to Jeannie Franz Ransom, illustrated by Stefan Axelson, or Stefan. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. Humpty Dumpty was bushed. At least I think so. Who am I? I'm Joe Dumpty, Humpty's younger brother. You probably haven't heard of me. I never was Mother's favorite, Mother Goose that is. Ever since she became Police Chief Goose, she thinks I'm just stirring up trouble with my detective business. Yes, Mother Goose always liked Humpty best. He's such a good egg. That's why I think it's a crime that he fell off the wall. After all, he'd been sitting up there for as long as I can remember, with no problems whatsoever, until that awful, scrambled up day. It was a picture book perfect morning. The old woman who lives in a shoe had just dropped off her kids at the Jack and Jill Daycare Center. The three little pigs were putting the finishing touches on their latest house. And across the field, Humpty was sitting on the wall. Sorry about that reflection. I wish I'd stopped to crack a few jokes with my brother, but it was Humpty's first week as captain of our new neighborhood watch program, and I didn't want to distract him. It says if you want a muffin, you're out of luck. Besides, it was almost 9, and I had to get to work. I made a quick stop and ran into Little Red Riding Hood. The muffin man's scrambling to fill a big order, Red said. I can't even buy one lousy muffin for my grandmother. She sniffed loudly and stomped off in a huff. With my espresso in hand, I headed to the office. As I opened my office door, the phone rang. It was little Miss Muffet. Joe, something's happened to Humpty. I raced to the wall. Miss Muffet was there, cell phone in hand. I called 911, she sobbed. I looked at my brother. He wasn't making a sound. Whoever did this was gonna fry. At least he landed sunny side up. I was walking back around the wall, and that's when I saw it. Something shiny was tucked under Miss Muffet's tuffet. She was on the phone, so I didn't bother asking if I could look under her tuffet. I just did. Sometimes detectives have to act first and ask questions later. Oops. It was a pair of binoculars, not just any binoculars. These puppies were the official binoculars of the Neighborhood Watch program. Humpty had been showing them off ever since he'd become captain. Were you looking under my tuffet? What are you doing with those? Muffy asked, grabbing the binoculars. I was just about to ask her the same thing when all the king's horses and all the king's men arrived. They couldn't put Humpty together again. So they scooped him up and rushed to the hospital. What's the story? I asked Muffy. I wanted some answers. Muffy sighed. I was just shooting the breeze with Humpty, waiting for Spider. Humpty was letting me try his binoculars, when suddenly this huffy-puffy wind blew him right off the wall. Police Chief Goose pulled up in her big honking cruiser. I was at the Three Pigs, she apologized. The wind we had this morning blew down their new house. I just told Joe that the wind made Humpty fall, Muffy said. I made Humpty fall, said a small voice out of nowhere. It's my fault, Spider said, dropping down from the tree. I was rushing to get down here by 9 this morning. My usual time when this puff of wind pushes me straight toward Humpty. I must have scared him because the next thing I knew, Humpty was on the ground. I zipped home, but I knew I had to fess up. Humpty was my friend. I almost wet my web. My brother wasn't afraid of anything. That's why he was the perfect neighborhood watch captain. What happened to Humpty wasn't your fault, Spider, I said. Remember the giant? Sorry. It wasn't anybody's fault, Muffy chimed in. It was an accident. Agreed, Chief Goose said. Go on to the hospital, Joe said. Joe, she told me, I'll write up an accident report. Accident report? No way. There's no case to crack. But, Chief, Humpty's been sitting on the wall for years without a wobble, I said. Then the first week he's neighborhood watch captain, he suddenly falls off. The same day the pig's house blows down? Coincidence? I don't think so. Chief Goose sighed. Okay, Joe, since Humpty's your brother, I'll give you till 5 o'clock to play detective. If you don't have anything by then, I'm writing that accident report. So Joe doesn't think it's an accident. I'm shell-shocked. I didn't have much time. I hurried to the hospital. Thanks to the miracles of modern technology, combined with some nifty techniques the doctors discovered when Jack fell down and broke his crown. Humpty was on the mend, but he didn't remember a thing. I needed to hit the streets and question a few characters myself. My first stop was the bears. I rang the doorbell 3 times and was about to give up when the door opened to reveal a bare foot. I was expecting a bare foot. I showed the blonde my badge and asked about the bear's whereabouts. I'm house-sitting, she said, yawning. Late night, I asked. Early morning. Some dog started howling and woke me up. How early? I probed. 9 a.m., she said. But now that I'm awake, want to come in for some porridge? Sorry, I'm on a low-carb diet. I hated to tell her no, but I was on the clock, and that clock was ticking. All right, everyone, I'll finish this story on Monday, and we'll find out what really happened to Humpty. Have a great weekend.